Hello,
Oh, is this Jenny?
this is Jenny. Hey,
Hi, it's nice to meet you, Jenny, at least
uh,
audibly.
it is so nice to audibly meet you too.
Is Michael going to be joining us today?
Yes, he is. Yeah, I just got him the link, so he should be in here any moment. Um,
Perfect.
yeah.
This is going to be fun. I think this is one of the few instances of a DeSci Rising episode where I have not had the pleasure to speak with either the team leads or the guests beforehand. So this is going to be a true exploration. Not that the other ones weren't, but a true exploration for myself as well as the rest of the community. So I think this is going to be great.
Yeah, this will be great. I love that. It's also kind of scary because you don't know what we could say. But no, we're definitely not going to say anything too scary. But I love that this is all going to be very spontaneous since we've never connected before. So very much looking forward to it.
Absolutely. I will say this though. I've seen you guys are trailblazing a hellstorm through the social medias, appearing on a variety of different podcasts, putting out a lot of really interesting material around JennyCO. So I must commend you guys on the amount of work and legwork you guys are putting in terms of broadcasting and signal boosting, the amazing potential that is being built in this ecosystem, in your own ecosystem.
Oh, thank you so much for that. It takes a whole team, and Ryan on our team has been amazing at finding these opportunities for us. So it's been great. It's been also, it's just been really fun to talk about it, to
Right.
more like share it. And every time we talk about it, there's something new that we get into, something new that's changed. And so it's just a blast. I really, really appreciate the opportunity. And I see you got Michael in here too. Hey, Michael.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you all. And
And Mike.
Jenny. I know Jenny.
Awesome. So, I mean, you guys both sound great. Audio is coming in. Hopefully, Twitter will not rug us. I know there's been some issues over the last couple of days of spaces glitching in here and there. Jenny, or I guess Jenny, I've made you a co-host in case we pop off or if either pop off. We'll be able to keep the space open. So bear with us if there are any technical difficulties. However, there shouldn't be, and we can just kind of get into our conversation. So, our normal opening. Hello, everybody. My name is Jelani, and welcome to the 33rd episode of the DeSci Rising series put on by DeSci World, where our goal here is always to provide an opportunity for the many wonderful projects on our growing DeSci World dashboard to just formally introduce themselves, update their progress, highlight their achievements, and just generally engage with both the DeSci World and wider DeSci community. Now, the idea behind all of this is that at DeSci World, we very much believe that more than the tech, more than the funding, it is the community leveraging these tools that will usher in many of the changes that we're looking for DeSci to bring to the various ecosystem industries. Now, in today's episode, I have the very great pleasure of speaking with Michael Nova and Jenny Diggles, who are the respective co-founders of JennyCO, which is a healthcare information compliant exchange and DAO focused on securing medical data sovereignty and incentivizing the sharing of health data to help drive medical innovation, particularly in the realm of personalized therapies. At least that's my understanding of how the platform is geared. And so with that, welcome Jenny, welcome Michael, and thank you both for taking the time today to help us learn more, not only about yourselves, but also the extensive work that is being done at JennyCO.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
It's great to have you guys. So, I mean, as the normal, trajectory of these kind of conversations go, it'd be great to kind of have a background, origin story of the both of you. How did you kind of meander your life paths, your career paths to start up something in a Web3, very relatively new niche, um, especially in considering the decentralized science movement. How did you guys get to this space?
Yeah. It started
I
off.
love this question.
Yeah, exactly. It started off with pot, basically.
Great story. Let's go.
End of discussion.
Okay. Well, Michael, I will say this. I did a little bit of a deep dive, so I know you are quite a prolific person in the space of cannabis, of AI, of being on the fringe of med tech, especially telehealth and digital med tech. So maybe that adds a little bit more substance to this cannabis story. We can go from there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Michael, yeah, if you want to
No,
share a
go
little
ahead. I
bit.
like the way you say it. I like the way you start
So
this off.
it pot is where Michael and I did meet. Now, my background, I've been largely an entrepreneur. I love and I get curious about something, and if I get curious about it, I can't quench that, and so I dive into things. And so, um, prior to meeting Michael and being in pot, I had built, iPhone app game, had gotten on a TV show that Apple was hosting. I had, built different tech companies, different digital agencies. Like I love building things, love creating what's new. But when I met Michael, I was in the cannabis industry. Again, my curiosity just slingshot me in there, and I got involved in that because, from a medical perspective, I was I was really amazed at what cannabis can do for people, and also equally horrified that it was still a Schedule One drug. So at the time I met Michael, an investor in one of my funds connected me with him, and it was like, I think there might be something here where Michael owns and has this lab and can make all these really cool genetic tests, and you're doing something in pot. Talk. It was literally like that. Like he threw us into a room together, and we did, and we were like, oh, there is something here. So Michael and I started off developing a rather novel genetic tests to tell people how cannabis would interact with their bodies, and that just started to snowball and move forward. I personally have been involved in crypto since 2012, so just have had that going on in the background for a while. My husband is also the co-founder of Constellation, so I've become very aware of the technology and that aspect of what it can do. And so Michael and I, we just kept moving the ball forward until eventually got to a place where we were like, wow, data matters, people's health matters. Let's package this all together in a way that hasn't been packaged together before to really benefit people. So that when we met was about 6 years ago now. So it's been a journey. We've had a lot of fun.
So that is actually a really interesting origin story. Very rarely do we see participants in the space that have spent so much time in either the traditional development world, that although that you tend to see more, but also that has extensive, decades long, at least uh, contact with Web3 or decentralized technology. And I was interested in seeing how did Constellation Network of all networks become the home of JennyCO, and that's it. That answers some of my
Mm-hmm.
question, but we'll definitely get into that. Michael, do you want to add anything to that in terms of your perspective and how you got here?
Yeah, I think the Jenny's summary is kind of right on the mark. Um, my background, even though I'm a physician, my background is really in computer science. So I'm more of a technical type of person, and I've always liked trying to move forward technologies, and especially in the consumer area. And so, it became very clear to us when after we had developed the cannabis test, there was more to just this one test. There was this whole area of how can we, help personalize recommendations, and how can we get people to move the dial on doing things, changing behavior, maybe doing it, maybe if you have some sort of prescription drug, maybe some other drug is better than something else. And all of that leads to, what do we really want? What do we really need, from potential customers of some system like this? Well, we need data. We need the users' data, and healthcare data can mean a lot of different things now. It can mean where you live, it can mean your zip code. It can mean, what you ate for lunch. I mean, there's all these different facets to it that make up you. It's your healthcare data is kind of your own mini NFT ID in some respects. And so, for us to get that information and to get people to change their behavior, changing behavior is really hard. And in the medical field and in healthcare, behavior and lifestyle makes up about 70% of morbidity and mortality. And the rest of it is genetics, 30% around there. So if you can change your behavior, you can change, things about what you do on a regular basis. It's better for you in terms of maybe, increasing your health span. And so the data for us was really important for us to get. And then we also kind of figured out that people mine this data all the time. Large companies mine data all the time. and especially healthcare data. It's extremely valuable. Um, an individual's healthcare data is worth up to maybe $5,000, in raw numbers, $5,000 a year, and you're continually adding to it. It's dynamic, changes. Maybe this drug worked, maybe this drug didn't. So the most valuable data of all of that healthcare data is outcome data. It's, just what I said. Does what we tell you to do, did it work or not? And people mine that data. Large companies, everybody from Google all the way. Last year there was 1,200 companies that mined, large companies that mine some sort of healthcare data. And so it's a very big business. It's a $50 to $60 billion business just in the United States. And so there was an opportunity for us to kind of put everything together with Web3, the Web3, or the consumer web, consumer profit web, so to speak. We had this idea: how do you get people to change their behavior? Well, I mean, I've spoken about this many times in the past. The only way to get people to really change their behavior is to pay them to do something, to remunerate them to do something. And that fit right into the whole Web3, blockchain, and crypto. And then for us to take this really dynamic information and make recommendations about that information to the consumer using artificial intelligence and machine learning, which is kind of my background. I worked on IBM's Watson for many years. So all of this kind of put together, as Jenny likes to say, we have these pillars in the company, and they all came together, but it didn't happen overnight. It took multiple years for us to get to this stage. There we go.
Yeah.
That's good. It's a perfect thing to kind of jump off of. So JennyCO, as you mentioned, has a few pillars, and it incorporates aspects of traditional Web3 data. Traditional Web2, quote unquote, traditional Web2, with the concept of data mining of healthcare data in this case, which is extremely profitable for those businesses that are doing it.
Yeah.
And then I imagine the Web3 component, as you mentioned, is that um, reciprocal direction of value that is given to the consumer, right? Which is something that is sorely missed in a variety of fields, and it's kind of the underlying layer of Web3. But it's interesting that you mention it as a way to not manipulate, but modulate behavior in a way that's
Right.
hopefully beneficial for the participant, right? Most people that I see, and there's a few data health exchanges or data donation platforms that are spinning up in Web3. And a lot of it is, yes, we're going to incentivize you and we're going to remunerate you, and that's cool, and it kind of ends there. It's very interesting to consider, or to see that you're considering the point of, yeah, you can pay them for it, but you can also help, leverage that payment opportunity to also help, or at least help them or guide them to make better medical decisions or better health decisions. And that's something that I think is
Mm-hmm.
missing in the culture aspect of DeSci to a certain extent, and I hope to see moving forward. And you guys have, admittedly, as you mentioned, 6+ years of advance in terms of thinking these things out and putting them out, which is really impressive. So that's definitely great to see. I don't know if there's more in terms of the appeal of Web3, because as much as appealing as it is, it also brings forth its own limitations, its own um, issues in terms of how to implement this. Is there anything else you guys want to maybe touch upon on the Web3 component and how it integrates into your platform? And then we'll get into the actual, like, what is JennyCO?
Yeah, for sure. So, the way that we are using Web3 is we hold our customers, the people who will use this platform, at the center of every single decision, because it is their data, it's their health. And so we want them to feel completely protected and trusting of the platform. And so while we comply with all the regulatory compliance around GDPR and HIPAA and you name it, we know that by adding in this component, we're also adding in a layer of protection and validity to that data. As we fast forward our business model and we look at these entities that will want to lease and access the data from these people, we're going to have to prove it's real. We're going to have some sort of way of proving through the blockchain, this is when this came in, like timestamping and marking, not even showing or exposing the data, but showing that there is source, there is a provenance of where it came from. So it's a really critical piece. And then that other flip side of blockchain, using tokens within the ecosystem, is a way that we also allow for people to package their data up with tokens in order to stake it in these programs and to be involved. So for us, there was just no way around it, that we had to do it this way. Like very early on, we had a couple of people ask us, well, you don't have to do it that way. You can just, you don't need blockchain. You can just do, you don't need crypto. You can just use fiat and all these things. But the they it just left a lacking for us. It left a vacancy that could be exploited, and we want to be completely solid and trustworthy so that people do feel comfortable putting their data into a system where they know they own it, they control it, they can delete it, you know. So it was a core piece. Michael, anything else you'd add there?
Yeah, there's obviously also a lot less friction, involved with using, some sort of chain. And in our case, we're involved with both, Polygon and the Constellation Group. A DAG chain is very appealing to us because of a lot less friction and cost and everything else. And the chain is immutable, as Jenny mentioned. Anytime a transaction or governance or whatever needs to be done, it's all there, on the chain. And so this idea of not only crypto but immutability, increased privacy. We're literally the only chain out there that is that has a sophisticated HIPAA compliance involved with it. So again, putting a bunch of these pieces together just made a lot of sense for us to do it. And there's a lot of interest in Web3 and in healthcare, as you mentioned. There's entire countries that have all their medical records on blockchain, like Estonia does. So kind of everything kind of came together all at once. The blockchain component, the AI component, the compensation component, and the physician component too. It's going to be our goal is to make it very easy for physician. Whenever you went into your physician's office, if you're on the JennyCO platform, you can download your data immediately. It's dynamic, and you can give it to your doc. And can go over with it. With him. So they're not. So we're not limiting. We're not trying to cut the medical professionals out of the loop in this far from it. We're trying to get them involved in the loop, and we do have a lot of interest on the medical side as well. So
Absolutely. The medical field, whether it be telemed or not, is ripe for optimization, right?
yeah.
It's one of these
And
super
I've been
archaic.
I don't mean to cut you off. Maybe I do mean to cut you off, but in the medical field is very difficult to change inertia. We have a 13 trillion dollar GDP, and a third of that is based around healthcare. I mean, it's the biggest business in the U.S. By a long margin, and there's a lot of bits and pieces in between you, the user, the consumer, and the healthcare you should get. There's a lot of different companies in the middle. There's a lot of different, and we're trying to, as Jenny mentioned, we're trying to put the consumer first. We started with the consumer, because if we went out and tried to get a deal done with, I don't know, some healthcare insurance company, that here's our system, and we want to do that, it would be a long slog for us to change the inertia of what's going on in the middle. But it's not a slog at all if we go after the consumer and provide them with a service they think is really valuable. And that's what we're doing.
Absolutely agree. It kind of ties the disconnected, or at least loosely connected points of this beast that we call the pharma company, or the not pharma, but the biomedical industry,
Yeah.
and optimizes it in a way that
Yeah.
adds that layer of trust, because to some point it becomes trustless, or at least less. You need less trust in the system, therefore you trust it a little bit more.
Right.
Um,
And then everybody, in the medical, hierarchy is basically, and the government is trying to figure out how to get quote unquote prevention to work. We're in kind of in the healthcare business is you get paid for doing something instead of getting paid for preventing something from happening. And
absolutely.
prevention is really the only way to cut down this enormous healthcare budget that we have going. And even the insurance companies have got on board with that. I mean, I'd make this joke. Jenny's heard this joke all the time. The best thing to happen for an insurance company is you have their insurance and you live till you're 150 and there's nothing the matter with you the entire time, and then you get hit by a car and die. That keeping you out of the hospital, keeping you in good health, preventing things from happening, is slowly, but it's definitely coming. And data is the key oil to do that.
Yeah, and I don't want to go off too much on a tangent, but I think what's really nice here is that that is absolutely true, but there's a whole other sector of the biomedical sphere that profits off of, you
Yeah.
know, therapies. But JennyCO actually tends
Hmm.
to, and we'll get into this right now, and addresses both ends, right? So you can
Yeah.
provide preventative measures in terms of data analysis and reports to the client or to the data provider, but also the on the other end, the pharmaceutical, the querying or the endpoint users that are looking to query this data to develop therapies, you also service them.
Yeah.
So it's this comprehensive, complementary system that exists.
Right. And we're all about science-based truth, and, peer-reviewed, projects and all that kind of stuff. That's, we're not trying to peddle, this kind of ethereal wellness stuff. Although I believe in scientific wellness, but that means, wellness and keeping you healthy based on real science. And that's what we're all about.
Yeah, we need substance, right? It's
You
not
need
just, and
substance.
I'm
Yeah.
biased. I'm a scientist by training, so I completely
Uh,
understand. But yes, we
okay.
need substance in the realm. So Daniel, I see, welcome. I see that you put in a request. I will bring you up to talk. I just want to give the opportunity for us to talk, and we've jumped the gun a little bit. For Michael and Jenny to actually talk about the JennyCO platform, and then I'll bring you up for any questions and comments. And everybody else, feel free to come up. This is a pluralistic uh, space. We want to be able to engage as we move forward. We don't have to wait till the end. So if you have questions, commentaries coming up, but please, Jenny, Michael, give us an overview of what exactly the JennyCO platform is and what we can do as data providers and what people in the pharmaceutical industry or querying or research development can also leverage this platform for.
So you really nailed the two main focuses, like who our customers are. And I'll start with the first one, which is what I would say is our most important one, which is the customer. So the JennyCO platform for them is a app, or they can also access it just through the web. And it's a place and a way for them to securely store not just their medical data, but the connected devices data. So it's coming from their Apple Watch or their Fitbit. And it's a place for them to also just track certain things. If they're tracking their blood pressure or whatever, they can start to store and track this information in there, as well as any genetic tests they may take, lab reports. They can all go in there. And with that, then they can start to get back recommendations that are specific to them and, specific to whatever their goals may be. If they're trying to lose weight, if they're going to run a marathon, whatever they're working towards, we want to be able to facilitate very personalized recommendations for them. And then ideally get back, did that work? Like, did that work for you or not? Because then that's how this continually optimizes. So that's like the core focus for the consumer, is to optimize their health, and then to also provide an aspect of wealth. And so with that, if they want to, they don't have to, but if they want to, they can opt into a variety of different DAOs so that their data is being grouped with other people and different insights are coming out of that. And as that's going on, we have a separate system that will allow for the people who would like to access the data to come in. We will never ever sell data. We call it leasing. And it's all around insights. So nobody will be able to take or scrape my personal information and get out and hightail. It's only going to be around the insights that they can glean from it. And we feel that our customers will be using this on a regular basis. So the data is going to be alive. It's going to be very fresh. It's current, versus what these companies are currently buying out there, which is a hodgepodge of various medical records, insurance records, you name it, and they're trying to piece it together. We feel that by having this very fresh, relevant data set, we'll be able to provide way better insights. And so those groups will be able to come in and access it from that end. And that's also where then the token mechanism comes into play. So one of our big goals was that our data is currently being bought and sold on the open market, and none of us are making any money off of it. So we want to be able to facilitate that exchange between those entities directly to the people whose data they've used in order to figure out whatever it is they're trying to figure out.
It's very good. Michael, do you want to add anything? Or Jane, I don't know if you were finished.
No, I think.
Oh yeah.
No, I think that's yeah. I think it's kind of right on the mark. At the gut value of what our company is we're really a public health company, And no matter who we talk to, about what we're doing, I think most people, in fact, almost everybody, doesn't even necessarily associate us as being a quote unquote a crypto company. We're all about trying to get the user not only to change their behavior with really scientifically validated recommendations, but also to potentially get a little bit of compensation about that. And so those kind of two uh, big ideas, if you will, are kind of what are parts of our core pillars or messages.
And so when it comes to the user that uploads their data, as you mentioned, they can do so from, I mean, data can be provided from Fitbits and
Yeah.
wearables. Um, but I think the initial messaging was that also like medical data, so data
Yeah.
from your GP and potentially genetic data. And I think somewhere here we have on the jumbo board, I've put up, you have DNA kits as well. So what is the range of data that a person can come and actually offer up to be licensed out via JennyCO to other entities? Is it just those three, or what is the kind of nuances there?
No, we have, yeah, there's basically a couple of different types of data. There's certainly, we're getting involved with electronic healthcare records and, extracting them, and helping the user extract that kind of, systems data, if you will. And then we have a number of laboratory partners that are starting to sell their laboratory tests, not just genetic tests. Although that was kind of we did an NFT with a genetic test. It was very successful. We sold it out, in a couple of weeks, which is very, kind of unusual on the healthcare side. And so we're going to have a lot of those different types of tests. Maybe a food allergy test or a vitamin D test, or tests that you can purchase, from us, and again, get potential, tokenization, for that, and then use that as part of that goes into your instance with all your data that we collect about you, and we use to make the personalized recommendations. So again, healthcare data covers a lot of different things now. How many, basically, what's your caloric burn? Again, you mentioned, what eat, diet and what you're eating on a regular basis, blood pressure, all these different, kind of facets. And initially we're starting off with a certain kind of a level, the initial data that we'll get from a user basically will be based on a questionnaire that we've kind of put together, which is more of a, not necessarily a complete family history, but it starts the ball rolling on information that we start collecting from you over, hopefully if you stay with us, over your lifetime. And again, it gets put in your own little, private instance, private chain, if you will, and then is used by our artificial intelligence to make recommendations for you.
That's amazing. Daniel, I brought you up. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask or comment away.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Sorry, I was looking for the unmute phone. So, no, thank you. It's an exciting conversation. I was just thinking some questions that I wanted to ask, if I may, because I've been in the GDPR space and NFTs kind of space, and I can always be curious about when someone tells that they are GDPR compliant and HIPAA compliant is something that brings really like a lot of curiosity from me. So I wanted to ask you, like, I have like really three questions, very basic questions. So the first one is if you can please talk a little bit more, like for instance, in terms of the GDPR, what happens if somebody like withdraw consent and it already like claim all the tokens, because you can do it really like the next day. So let's say I put my information, I claim the tokens or the NFTs, and then I withdraw consent, and the platform, if it's GDPR compliant, has to delete my data. What would happen to the tokens?
Well, I mean, it's yeah, that yeah, go ahead.
So, oh yeah. So, well, the way that we've architected our like DAOs, or what we're going to call groups, because the word DAO we all recognize, that the average person doesn't, is if I want to contribute my data into one of those, I contribute some of my own tokens along with my data, and they get locked up for a time
Right.
period. And during what, and I know that when I go into it, I know how long it's going to be there. And so if I do during some time decide to withdraw my data, I can withdraw, I can delete it, and I can take back my initial tokens but I will not get any of the tokens for the use of my data as part of it. So people will always be able to delete, but the token releasing of them participating in these studies comes after the fact, like at the close of it. So um, that's how we kind of deal with it. Michael, anything else you
Yeah,
want
I
to add?
mean, and there is kind of a time, stamp on it too as well. I mean, we've talked about this exact issue, that somebody decides to give us a bunch of data and then collects tokens and then decides to uh, delete their data the next day. We're not going to necessarily allow that to happen. And there's ways to mitigate that a little bit, by, as Jenny mentioned, by kind of rolling out the tokens over a certain period of time, and um, in the group phase, whatever group you're in, and with staking and everything else. And so, but at the core, of us, we believe very strongly that the consumer has ultimate control about what they want to do.
Yeah, that's good. Just at least to invite you not to say that you are GDPR compliant, because if you are still thinking about this, so it's kind of I mean, I say this very respectfully, but I really take the claims of new projects very, very seriously.
Sure.
And I would recommend to say, well, we are looking to be GDPR compliant, because if you say, well, we will not allow that to happen, or it's in the future, then I think that should be a disclaimer right there. And
Well,
yeah,
I think to clarify, Michael was saying that what we wouldn't allow to happen is for people to kind of scam it. So we won't allow people to come in, upload data, grab tokens, and leave. But they can always delete their data. That's theirs. They always own that. So we just want to prevent people from trying to scam our system,
right.
understandably.
That's okay. But the second question has to do exactly with the token, because there's another characteristic that you were talking about, incentivizing people to share the data, which is like incentivizing them to consent to share the data. And according to GDPR, it has to be freely given. So in order to be GDPR compliant, you should not offer anything and I just posted on Twitter exactly what the GDPR Article 7 says. So again, is kind of I think not completely aligned. I mean, I am not the only obviously expert that you could talk to, but again, like a token or given a token as a reward, or well, whatever the name might be, is not necessarily GDPR compliant. So this is just like my opinion. You can obviously look more information down to it. But the second question is also regarding something that I post on Twitter as well. Like if you are using your ERC20 as I think it's an ERC20, maybe it's not, the GSO token as a medium of payment, have you not think about maybe doing it with stable coins,
Sure.
or are you using your token to crowdfund?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're doing is kind of both of those. We've certainly talked about using stable coins and do that. We're just starting to get kind of really towards the basically the launch of the token. And as you mentioned, there's many kind of different ways um, that can happen, and we're certainly well aware of the whole stablecoin thing, and have discussed it, but haven't quite got there yet.
Well, I would
Got
imagine, so if I may just add, I would imagine, and we'll get into this because there is a proposed governance component to this platform.
Right.
And you can do it with a stable coin. You encode that into the smart contract with additional components. But I guess the JennyCO token, which we will get to, is that one of its utilities is the governance in this platform.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And we were very careful about that. Very careful about showing just as maximum amount of utility as we could, and governance was one of them. And then also being able to basically get something, for the token, on our platform, whether it's an additional test or recommendations or whatever, all that kind of utility is baked into the token.
Right.
Daniel?
No,
Yes.
thank you very much. My last question that would be is like I mean I'm always like also curious about these topics because there are now many patents around DNA tokenization using NFTs. We are one of the holders, and I don't know if you are aware of this, and if you have explored this, just to be like also not only GDPR compliant, but also respecting other companies' IP, intellectual property compliant.
Yeah, we're well aware of that. We have our own filed intellectual property around our own system, including that includes gets down to the granularity of what the pillars are, and kind of the whole. It's a systems patent. But yeah, there's a lot of intellectual property out there around just about anything, and we're not ignoring that kind of stuff. So happy to chat about that.
And correct
going
me if
forward.
I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. And this is going out to other participants that are looking to spin up their own versions of this and to also contend with this concept of the patent and licensing abilities. Many of these patents that you mentioned, Daniel, are filed and not fully patented yet. Is that true? Or are there some that are currently in their full matured format?
No, there are some very interesting materials that because we work with Shepard Mulling. Our lawyer is James Gatto, and you could really see that this is now a crowded space, and it's already given. I mean, there's some interesting patents around that, and they involve NFTs, they involve data, they involve identity. So yeah, this should be a very interesting topic to be analyzed like with an expert in IP for sure. Because again, we are talking now about blockchains that will record all the transactions, and it better be like again very aligned with all the legal structure from day zero, right? So yeah, I would definitely recommend that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Daniel. Always great insight when it comes to these kind of things. Is there any additional questions or commentaries that you'd like to add before we move on?
No. I mean, just again to invite everyone that is looking into coming into the healthcare space to be very cautious about and also like promoting the use of tokens as registered securities. We invite everybody to register them as securities just to avoid, because again, if it's a payment and then you're giving rights, it's very much like a share. So it's a very heavily regulated space. So we always invite everybody to consider registering these tokens as securities. Is not a bad idea. It's a good idea because we want participants in Web3, especially newcomers, to be an example of what needs to be done and not the opposite. Like see you in 1 year, like saying, hey, I did my ICO and now it's minus 96% of value, and the news is filled out with bad stuff, right, about somebody in the space. So yeah, happy to collaborate in any way or to give advice. I've been here since 5 years ago, so me and my team are always open, and yeah, we should be an example of what needs to be done and not the opposite. So congratulations and best of luck with your launching of your platform.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for sharing. Um, this actually brings up a really interesting question that I often have with these cases, and it relates to the GDPR and HIPAA compliance component. So, we talked about, as a participant, if I want to come and I want to share my genomics or share my data information, and then I choose to pull it out, right? To be compliant, to be HIPAA compliant, GDPR compliant, I imagine JennyCO has to delete that data. But then what happens if, or is there a disclaimer whereby it says that, okay, well, if you decide to come back in, how do you guys deal with that? So if I pull it out and I'm like, oh, you know what, 10 years or 5 years go down the line and I want to, plug back in my NFT, what kind of opportunity or potential exists there for that user?
That's a great question and a good use case. It's funny because it makes me think about myself. I don't use social media, and so like when I get on Twitter Spaces, I use it and then I delete it and then I come back in. Different story because there's not a lot of data coming with me every time I do that. So, I think that what we're going to have to look at is the ability to allow people will leave. And then if at some point in time they want to come back because there's a benefit there, so then we have to let them come back. And so since it will be fully deleted, that's the challenge for a company like us in the Web3 space. We won't necessarily have a way of identification using that sort of information. And so that's a really good question. We're going to have to look at that. Michael, what are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. Sorry.
No, it's an issue. It's an issue I think that is
Yeah,
pervasive in the realm of assets, especially bio assets or non assets that must be deleted at some point, things that relate to the biomedical field. And
Mm-hmm.
people are fickle and people make mistakes, and sometimes they'll hit something and pull it out and, oh shoot, now I want to go back in, but it's the deletion process. Is there, I think it's one of the things to contend with, and I think it's important for, and in the vein of
Mm-hmm.
thought of Daniel with his disclaimers, which are very important, and definitely we need more of in decentralized science, especially the biomedical part of it. I think these are talking points that we have to have so people understand, like, this is, yeah, it's a little bit more modular, it's interactive, it's dynamic, it's almost a living existence in and of itself, but it comes with its drawbacks of you can't be as willy-nilly with these kind of
Mm-hmm.
things. And that also, oh, well, go ahead if you want to touch upon anything there.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with
Okay,
you.
cool.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so interesting, like this being in the Web3 space and building things. This is all still so new, especially when it comes to consumer forward platforms. And so these are the sort of contingencies we have to think through and match human behavior and human error with how the platform works and how we can best optimize for those situations so that it does work for the company and for the people.
Absolutely.
So sorry, just continue. I was completely
No,
agreeing.
I think that you're absolutely right. And I'm gonna take a little bit of a technical turn here, a technical turn in the conversation as it relates to the NFT standards. So Daniel mentioned ERC20. I know you guys are built on Constellation, which is not the ERC20 standard. It has its own standard. It's DAG standards. How that relates to NFTs, I am not 100% sure, but I know that NFTs, and as you mentioned, this is extremely new technology, right? This is very, very early days, and there are new standards of, dynamic NFTs and different formulations of NFTs as they come out. Some that are more permissive to allow dynamic data, which essentially becomes somewhat less, still fungible, but mutable to an extent.
right.
Um,
Mutable.
and these things start to, as these things start to come online, then we may have slightly different discussions. Integrating or building yourself on the Constellation network, and maybe we'll go into, if you're able to, some of what that actually means relative to an EVM or Ethereum or the Ethereum virtual machine. What kind of benefits does that give from the data perspective, and also how does it pertain to interoperability if it comes to a participant who says, okay, I want to leverage JennyCO, but the world becomes blockchain integrated, and you know what, someone else is offering me or is offering a better use case of data. Can I pull my NFT from JennyCO and bring it to a quote unquote competitor or another entity in the space that is leveraging the same kind of stuff? Like, what kind of interoperability aspects does it exist within the base tech that is used to protect, or I guess encapsulate this data?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, you know, we are just we understand that interoperability is a very key component of what we have to build, and we understand also that people, you know, like to move, you know, potential information from, you know, one area, you know, to another, or one chain, you know, to another. And we're going to have as many of the, we don't have, you know, we're right in the middle of building, you know, the app and the fundamental platform, and it's, you know, not completely built yet. But eventually, when we add, you know, those kind of features, you know, to it, you know, you know, you'll be able to do exactly what you said. If you want to move it, you're able to move it. But yeah, and there are going to be, you know, certain individuals that are going to want to do that kind of thing. So, you know, we're completely well aware of it, and you know, it's part of our whole, you know, R&D project. It's part of the whole R&D, you know, interoperability project on a HIPAA compliant that we have a deal with Arizona State University and their blockchain group, you know, to kind of handle a lot of that, you know, very forward thinking stuff.
Yeah, I think, you know, the adage within the Web3 space that the world is going to be multi-chain, and there's not going to be
Yeah.
one chain to rule them all or
No.
one platform to rule them all. And I think the level of composability that is going to come to DeSci is going to be very similar to how it exists in decentralized finance, where you have building blocks or Lego blocks that are built on top of each other, whether it be in the form of derivatives or be in the form of looping assets through different protocols to
Yeah.
generate more and more yield. That's going to be a thing, I believe, in decentralized science space as these biological agents become biological assets. And I look forward to seeing what that kind of looping opportunity and level of interoperability is. And my cursory understanding of Constellation is that inherently, different from Ethereum, it is built in a way that is amenable to that. Now, you guys
Yes.
may not be leveraging that, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You know, it's different. You know, when it really comes down to it, and you know, Jenny, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Constellation is a hypergraph. It's not necessarily a chain. And so, you know, the more people that get involved with it, the more efficient it becomes. And it's also a layer 0, you know, protocol, you know, which means we can, you know, have hardware connected up, you know, fairly simple, and it's got a lot of advantages. You know, the more people that get involved, the more nodes, the faster it gets, and there'll be more opportunities, you know, for us, you know, to link in potentially other chains if we want to do that.
And I will add for those of you who are not sure and are looking for homes of your particular projects or, you know, intricacies, especially those who are active in the Gitcoin alpha round or the Gitcoin beta round and are seeing some of the limitations as it comes to, you know, donating because of gas fees.
Yeah,
Constellation has no gas fees. And
right.
so that opens up a whole other realm of, okay, what is the ease of which of use for the JennyCO platform? What do I have to worry about if I'm wanting to leverage the JennyCO token in terms of you know, transaction? There's no gas fees, so that's a little added bonus for those who are interested in learning more about, you know, the more intricacies, the more tech related intricacies of such a platform built on hypergraphs. Mind you, I am not a hypergraph. I'm not. We weren't sponsored by them. This is just me talking a little bit from my own due diligence, but I think that's really cool, and I look forward to see different projects built on different platforms that give
Yeah,
fundamental inherent differences to a similar, you know, business structure. I think it's really cool.
right. And there's different intellectual property with it, and you're not being a shill. We understand that.
Right, exactly. So cool. So let's take a step back to the actual token. So the JennyCO token, I believe, is live or about to go live. And if so, or if it is, what is the actual governance that it gives you? What can I as a user control as it relates to the platform? Or is it just my own data that I can control?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just your data. It's obviously your data. It's a pure utility token, and so they're on the original, the overall JennyCO DAO. There's a governance component to it that the token is involved with, and then, as Jenny mentioned earlier, all the groups or the micro DAOs that get put together have their own state channel. Well, have their own type of governance that kind of sits underneath, the overall arching DAO. And that's the overall DAO is what we will have in the beginning.
And so, as a player, as a token holder, as a
Yeah.
somebody with a governance stake, can I decide what deal? So I just want to resolve what can and can't be done as it relates to governance. And the reason I say this is because a lot
Yeah,
of
I
people,
know where you're going.
right? So I know I know. So, but for the rest of the folks out there, this is definitely a difficult discussion for team builders, and as it relates to how much into the philosophical component of FP are you actually going in. And I think it's a
Yeah.
really important conversation because sometimes it just can't be just for efficiency's sake or just for pragmatism's sake. And so I think it's worth having these open discussions on that. So
Yeah,
I
I think,
focus.
and
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and
Well,
in healthcare, when it really comes down to it, healthcare is a different business than any other business,
exactly.
and people in general want to be guided in healthcare by some sort of experts,
Exactly.
right?
And
And
I think
so,
it's important. It's important to reference that because you'll hear people
yeah,
make these wild claims of like, it's not as decentralized, but it's okay because it's not supposed to
it's
be.
okay. It's not
Right?
supposed to be.
It's not
Exactly.
it's not that layer. It's not as simple as a transaction. Like I don't need somebody to overview the transaction if I have an automated system to do that. But when it comes to medical knowledge and application and data analysis and validation, yeah, you want to have an expert or you want to have a layer of experts, and that in and of itself can be more open, more quote unquote decentralized by more participants being able to have access to it, and that's the whole
Sure.
premise of DeSci. But there is always going to be that overarching hierarchical layer of filtering. And so with that in mind, I'm going to ask the question that I'm sure some people users that may be uninitiated to the medical complex might have in terms of, can I decide who comes in and can lease my data? Where is it that, like, where does my governance capacity stop on the platform?
Well, yeah, I mean, if in general, let's say a pharmaceutical company A comes in and says we want to run a study with this many people and in this age group and this ethnicity and it's taking this drug and X, Y, and Z, and we want to put a group together and have a DAO. Or who's interested in that? It's basically who is interested in that kind of thing, and then the people that sign up for that will be in the micro DAO, which is underneath, the overarching DAO, and they will have the ability, to decide how they want their data to be, potentially used or not used. And that's kind of, it's not much more depth to that we're thinking about at this point.
Right.
But again, there will be this hierarchy. And maybe that kind of a group gets managed by its own kind of sub hierarchy that's in there. Maybe there's one person from the pharma company, one MD, one I don't know PhD, whatever, that adds kind of as overseers to the micro DAO, and their governance is kind of baked into that particular state channel.
Yeah, I'll just iterate there that it's all consent based. So
Yeah.
somebody will not run into an issue of their data being leased by somebody unaware, that they'll be basically asked, do you want to join this one? Do you fit the criteria to join this specific study? And then they choose it. And so nobody will be ever
Forced to do
in a
anything.
position where, they won't be forced. There won't be any sort of weird icky feeling that, oh no, my data is now being used by some group that I don't really care for. So yeah, consent is key for
And
us.
that is the ultimate point. I think is what sits squarely in what is and what is not Web3, and it's that layer of consent in terms of ownership over data, sovereignty over data, and how it is applied. And so, yes, the governance perspective is extremely difficult to deal with, especially when you're thinking at like optimal efficiency and scaling and all these kind of things. But I can appreciate that the emphasis was put on, consent is the first step in the determining of what actually is to happen and what component needs to be integrated in the platform. And I applaud you guys, and I very much appreciate that kind of thing.
Yeah, consent is key
Exactly. Consent
in
is
healthcare.
absolutely beyond the shadow of a doubt. Um,
Yeah.
so, as we start to wrap up on time, again, please feel free to come up and ask questions and make commentaries if you would like to. Clearly, both Michael and Jenny are knowledgeable in terms of what they're building out from both ends of the spectrum, of the components that exist within this platform, and obviously very friendly. So please take advantage of that opportunity now. But one of the questions I have, and this is maybe a little bit foisting into the future, is do you guys already have? Oh, Julius, I'll bring you up. I'll just still ask my question first because I'm the host. Um, do you guys already have third party end users kind of lined up? You might not be able to speak on it, and if not, that's fine. But if you can, is there prospective endpoint clients that are interested in tapping into JennyCO, to leverage the assets that you will eventually be accruing?
Yes, yes, and no. I'm not going to talk about
Awesome.
it.
Good. That's good to know. Hey, listen, from a biz dev perspective, knowing that the platform already has deals in the pipeline or potential deals in the pipeline, I think is important, especially if your interest is in having passive income or actual, remuneration from your assets. Julius, you are up. Please feel free to ask your questions.
Hey, thank you, Jenny, Michael. Thanks for doing this. Just a quick question. I know timelines are difficult, but in terms of the ability to sync Apple Watch data with the JennyCO app and order labs, is there any type of quarterly date that is the target? Is it a 2024 and beyond type deal, or will that be coming here soonish?
Soonish. Yeah, I think part of the initial app. I think we're thinking about having kind of an alpha launch in the app in the next month or two, and then part of the beta will definitely have that in there once we kind of bake through some of the initial issues that we have.
Excellent.
And we'll also be on the website. We'll definitely have that on the website, maybe even sooner than on the app.
Awesome, Julius. Thank you for your question. That actually leads me to another question. But before that, Avocado, please unmute yourself and share your question or comment.
Cool name.
Hey guys, thank you, DeSci World, for putting this together, and Jenny, Michael, congratulations to you guys. Super excited for you and then everything that's coming with the platform. Question I had, and Michael kind of alluded to it earlier about being able to connect hardware due to the HyperGraphs Layer 0 technology. So, wondering if you guys have thought about and if you're able to share about any wearables or medical devices that would be, produced, manufactured by JennyCO stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's something we talk about for sure.
it is. Yeah,
Yeah, it's something that we're
the
very
Jenny watch.
interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, something, and figuring out what the method is, what data is going to be the most valuable for each person to collect, both in terms of their insights that they get back from it, as well as the potential remuneration from the use of it. So it's something we were talking about. And what's interesting is right now, creating wearable devices keeps getting easier and easier every day. I think Michael and I see a new device crop up at least once a month. And so we're not going to jump right into that initially. It feels like a great time, though, for us to keep our eye on it and then to learn from our own platform and our users really what is going to be the most important key. And so then from there, I think it'll be rather not simple, but it'll be much clearer in terms of what is the device and what does it do. So it is something we were definitely thinking about for down the road.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah, first things first. A lot more priorities to worry about before then. But that's cool you guys are thinking about it.
This actually opens up so both of these, Julius and Avocado, you guys both kind of alluded to something that I found really interesting here is if you're leveraging Apple Watch for existing tooling, essentially you're running data to these participants, right? You're actually essentially incentivizing people to leverage those assets that feed into the paradigm that you're trying to move away from. And so how do you reconcile that, like, within your own heads and I guess to your community? And one of the obvious ones is, okay, we're going to spin up our own. This is going to be a proof of principle test series or test period. and then we're going to spin up our own Apple Watch, or we're going to spin up our own equivalent hardware. But during that time, what is going to, like, why would the endpoint users come to you if they can continue to just buy the data from Apple that is now being incentivized more so?
We think that people will come to us because the data is going to be, like I said earlier, living. It will come with more information than just what the Apple Watch has. And we also know this is a transition period, that we probably won't see a sharp cutoff that all of a sudden, everything is coming straight to JennyCO. There's going to be a migration and a transition. And if we prove that our data is providing way better insights and outcomes for both our people, customers inside the app, as well as the businesses that want to buy it, I think we're going to be in a very good position. So it's also interesting, like what you say, it's fascinating because people are collecting data, but that data is being sold right now. And so what we see is like, okay, we can't stop Apple from doing that. We can't stop the buyers from doing that. But what we can offer is for people to bring that data over into our ecosystem where there is value there for them and beyond what they're just getting off of the apps. So it'll be an interesting transition for sure. But I do think that us having a living data set is extremely important and key in terms of how we'll differentiate from the other data out there.
Awesome.
Yeah, and remember the most valuable data in healthcare. It's all valuable, but the most valuable data is the outcome data. It's what, did the drug work?
Correct.
Did this food lower your cholesterol? Did X, Y, or not? Did this exercise give you bigger muscle? It's all that stuff. Is as Jenny mentioned, is the insight around the data that we're in, going to grind through and hope to pull out. And it's valuable not only for the user, it's valuable for the pharma company or the insurance company or whatever group is interested in potentially mining our platform.
Amazing. I have so many other questions, but in the interest of time and respect for our guests and listeners, I'll wrap it up. I have one last question, and it's a very pertinent question, one that's been on my mind for a while now. Jenny, is JennyCO named after you?
It's really funny. I inadvertently, yes. And so Michael and I.
That's the short answer.
That's the short answer.
Oh, this is the weed one. Okay, it's a cannabis comment. All right, let's go.
Yeah, no, it's really simple. When we first started building a business together, it was called Cannabis DNA because that's where we were focused. And so we had that for a while. And then we had a DBA as a different company name that was just more generic as we were really formulating this idea of the data and the exchange and what that value was. And then when it came to coming up with a name that was consumer facing and forward, at first we thought about playing with the word genes, something with the word gene in it, because there's a lot of genetic stuff. But that really didn't quite fit because we're not just specifically focused on just genetic data.
Yeah.
So then it went to, well, what, I think Michael said it, what if it's JennyCO? Because JennyCO sounds way better than MikeyCO. So I was like, sure, let's do it. And so yes, it happens to be my name, but how we got there was kind of a roundabout way.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Hey, listen, KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. And that's really what we're trying to achieve. So thank you guys both. Last question, I promise. How can the wider DeSci community or just the general community on Web3 support you guys in your initiatives and JennyCO? And this can also be a closing statement if you guys want.
So I would just say, just follow us, just follow what we're doing, give back insights. And
we like the criticism, not a problem, so, in healthcare, everything has to be referenced with, hopefully data that experts in the field, that think we're doing a good thing. And so we don't mind that, if we're missing something, tell us.
Absolutely.
We don't have our head in the sand about any of this stuff, and both of us have, kind of a long experience, kind of dealing with the healthcare industry. So.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And yes, guys, do please follow, reach out, either message them, maybe not Jenny because she deletes Twitter, but Michael and I guess Ryan, who mans the JennyCO Handle, please reach out to them, discuss with them, have insight. I imagine as the DAOs spin up, there may be a Discord here or there or some other platform for that. But thank you both for coming on and sharing your project, your platform, your vision. I think it is a picture, small picture of what is to come in the future when it comes to medical health and ownership and data sovereignty. Daniel, thank you always for your insights as it relates to GDPR, and Avocado and Julius for coming on to ask questions and commentaries. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. Also be sure you can learn more about them and other projects on the DeSci World dashboard. Feel free to come and host, put yourself on or learn more. And yeah, that's it. We will see you guys next week for the next episode of DeSci Rising. I'll be in touch, and feel free to reach out anytime, guys. Have a great weekend and a lovely day.
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.